My name is Sloan, and I'm 31. The call came at 5:43 p.m. on a Thursday. I was standing inside the skeleton of a new build, beams exposed, sawdust in my hair, boots muddy from red clay. My phone buzzed and my mother's voice hit my ear with that careful tremble she uses right before she drops something cruel and pretends it's reasonable. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask about the 2-8 unit complex I'd been pushing to finish early. She said, "Don't come to Thanksgiving." No explanation at first. Just a sentence, like my presence was a scheduling error. Then she added, "Wilder asked me to Tubo. He's bringing Genevieve, and he doesn't want your job to embarrass him." My brother, Wilder, works at a bank headquarters downtown. Tailored suits, shiny shoes, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having to build anything with his hands. He'd started dating a woman he considered high society, an interior designer named Genevieve, and apparently the last thing he wanted was his sister showing up with calluses and a job site tan. My mom said softly, "You understand why this is important to him, right?" I stared at the half-built walls, the raw studs, the place that would become homes for real people. I felt grit under my nails and the weight of my truck keys in my pocket. I said, "I understand. Because arguing with a woman who chooses optics over her own child is like yelling at a billboard." Then I hung up. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't scream at the sky. I just stood there in the quiet after her voice disappeared and realized something I'd spent years avoiding. They weren't embarrassed by my job. They were embarrassed that my job made me real. Because for 10 years, I'd been the invisible pillar holding up their respectable lives. While Wilder collected titles, I built a company. While my parents posted photos at charity galas, I paid bills, fixed emergencies, and kept their world from collapsing behind the scenes. The second my mom said, "Don't come," my phone buzzed again. A credit monitoring alert. Someone had just attempted to pull my business credit for a $500, 000 bridge loan. My body didn't even have to think. I knew exactly who did it. Wilder. Of course it was Wilder. I sat in my truck for a full minute, engine off, watching the alert on my screen like it was a live grenade. Because this wasn't a nasty comment or a family snub. This was a crime. And it wasn't even his first attempt. A month earlier, Wilder had hosted a peace offering dinner. He'd been unusually kind, pouring expensive wine, talking about how we should be closer. I played along because I've learned one thing about manipulative people. They get sloppy when they think you're relaxed. He waited until he thought I was sleepy. Then he picked up my work tablet. I felt him press my thumb to the sensor when he asked me to hold the glass for a second. I watched him take photos of my social security card and my incorporation documents. He thought I didn't notice. I noticed. I didn't stop him that night because I wanted him comfortable. I wanted him confident. I wanted him to keep moving until he left a trail so obvious even he couldn't deny it later. That's the difference between being the responsible one and being the one who finally gets tired of saving people who don't respect you. An hour after the credit pull alert, Wilder texted me like nothing happened. "Hey Sloan, Genevieve and I are looking at a place at Legacy Point. It's a stretch. Since you're just doing whatever it is you do with dirt and bricks, you wouldn't mind sending $10, 000 as an early wedding gift. Think of it as your contribution to the family's reputation." I read it twice. Whatever it is you do. That sentence said everything. He didn't even know what I did. And he didn't care. He just wanted money. He wanted to cosplay wealth with my resources, then hide me when it mattered. I didn't argue. I didn't lecture him. I typed back, "Sure. Happy for you." And I sent the $10. Ling ling ling. Because I knew exactly where it was going. Wilder wasn't buying a house deposit. He was buying a crown. A white Porsche 911 he'd been drooling over for months. Fine, let him buy it. Because the moment he spent my money, he handed me leverage. While Wilder shopped for leather upholstery, I called a friend in bank compliance. Not to hack anything, not to do anything illegal, I gave her the transaction ID from the credit pull and told her the truth. Clean and direct. My brother is attempting to secure a $500 000 bridge loan using my corporate tax ID and a forged electronic signature. Don't decline it yet. Flag the file for manual audit and hold funds in escrow for 48 hours. That's the thing about fraud. Once it's flagged, funds can't move freely. But Wilder's dashboard would still show approved, pending distribution. He'd think he won. He'd think $500,000 was on the way. Over the next 2 days, I set the stage quietly. I didn't post online. I didn't threaten him. I didn't warn my parents. I just prepared receipts. Thanksgiving arrived, and Wilder had turned dinner into a gala at a modern coastal mansion. All glass and steel and expensive angles. He'd been bragging for weeks that he consulted on the financing, using this house like a prop to impress Genevieve's family. I showed up an hour late on purpose. Not in work boots. Not in a hoodie. I wore a simple black dress. Hair clean. Posture straight. Not because I needed approval, but because I refused to let anyone blame how I look for what they did. The moment I stepped into the foyer, the air shifted. My mother's smile wobbled. My father blinked like he couldn't process me being there. Across the room, Wilder leaned against a marble island with champagne, playing rich. He saw me and marched over, face tightening. "What are you doing here?" he hissed. I told Mom, "This is a professional circle. Get out before you ruin this for me." I didn't flinch. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a thick cream envelope. I didn't give it to him. I handed it to my father. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said. It's an itemized invoice. Every mortgage payment. Every property tax. Every one of Wilder's emergency transfers I covered over the last 10 years. Since I'm not family enough for dinner, I'd like my investment back. Wilder laughed loud and sharp, trying to make me look insane. "Security!" He pointed at the door like he expected me to be dragged out. Instead, the front doors opened. A flatbed tow truck rolled into the circular driveway. People drifted to the windows in that slow, hungry way wealthy crowds do when they smell disaster. Wilder's face drained as the repo driver hooked a winch to his brand new white Porsche. I leaned in close, voice calm. "I didn't steal your car." "Wilder," I called the dealership as the verified source of the down payment. "The moment the bank flagged your loan application as fraud, the dealership pulled the vehicle back as a risk." He looked from the Porsche to me like he couldn't understand how the floor had moved. Genevieve stepped forward, confused. "Wilder, what is she talking about?" Before he could spin a lie, a tall, gray-haired man in a charcoal suit stepped out from the crowd like he owned the room. "Mr. Henderson, Senior VP at Wilder's Bank." Wilder's mouth opened, then closed. "Mr. Henderson's voice was flat with disappointment. "I spent the afternoon reviewing the bridge loan you pushed through." "Wilder, the one with Sloan's forged signature and corporate ID. Compliance froze the funds 2 hours ago." Wilder stammered. "Sir, I can explain. It was temporary. I was going to—" "You were going to commit federal bank fraud to fund a life you can't afford." "Mr. Foy," Henderson cut in, "you're fired, and the police are waiting in the foyer to discuss identity theft." Genevieve's face changed fast, from confusion to disgust. She looked down at the ring on her finger. I leaned close, just enough for her to hear. "He bought that with the $10 000 I sent last week. It's not an heirloom." Her jaw tightened. She yanked the ring off and threw it at Wilder's chest. It hit his suit and bounced to the floor like his entire act had finally become physical. 2 plainclothes officers walked Wilder out. My parents stood frozen, watching their golden boy's career collapse in real time. Not because I shouted, but because he got caught. If your family uninvited you because your job embarrassed them, would you stay quiet? Or show up with receipts? Comment, "Stay quiet or show receipts." I didn't stay for turkey. I left while the whispers were still forming. I went back to my hotel, set my phone down, and slept like someone who finally stopped carrying a weight she never agreed to hold. 3 days later, my mother called, not to apologize, not to ask if I was okay. She called because Wilder needed help. "He's your brother," she cried. "We have to fix this." I said, "No, you have to face it." Then I hung up. Wilder got out on bail fast, because my parents emptied every account they had to protect the image they worshipped. They didn't blame him. They blamed me. And that's when Wilder escalated. Because men like him don't learn humility. They learn revenge. At Doi, 0 my site security sent a silent alert. I opened my laptop and watched a thermal feed from my job site. A figure crept toward my $1 million excavator carrying a red gas can. Wilder. He thought if he couldn't steal from me quietly, he'd hurt me loudly. He didn't know I'd upgraded site security the day after Thanksgiving. AI thermal sensors, silent alarms, and a suppression system tied directly to the fuel zone. As he splashed gasoline, the system triggered. Not water. A blast of indelible blue security dye and fire-retardant foam hit him head to toe. On the feed, he lit up like a neon ghost. Slipping. Stumbling. Trying to wipe his face like he could erase what he'd done. Police arrived 4 minutes later and found him glowing blue, reeking of gasoline, and holding the can like a confession. This time there was no bail. Attempted arson stacked on top of fraud makes judges less patient. The next morning, my parents showed up at my office, eyes red, voices trembling, begging me to be the bigger person and drop charges for the family. I didn't yell. I didn't insult them. I handed them a final legal notice. "I bought the debt on your house 6 months ago. When the bank was ready to auction it, I said, I was going to give it back after the holidays. After last night, I changed my mind. You have 30 days to vacate." My mother's mouth dropped open. My father couldn't look at me. I walked them to the door. Not cruel. Just finished. Because the truth is, I didn't do this to punish them. I did it to stop funding disrespect. Wilder's sentencing came later. Years. Restitution. A record that would follow him forever. Genevieve's family erased him. The bank scrubbed his name like he never existed. My parents, finally, learned what it feels like when the person who always fixes things stops doing it. 6 months into his sentence, I got a letter from Wilder. 10 pages of cramped handwriting. "I did it for us." He wrote, "You destroyed us because you were jealous." I didn't finish reading. I fed it into my shredder and watched it turn into confetti. Because his words didn't have weight anymore. My life looks different now. My chosen family doesn't look like the one I was born into. It's people who show up. People who respect the work. People who don't need me smaller so they can feel big. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. If you want more real stories like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.